Hi guys, and welcome to a new video. So the last two videos that I have made was also on gender theory and gender ideology. The first video was basically about what was happening in the West and how that is a bad thing. And the second video was about why gender ideology was taught in schools and colleges. And in this video, like I promised in the last video, we would look at the origin of the gender ideology or the gender theory and how it came to be. So, sorry to quote Wikipedia again, but here is a important piece of information. Analysis of more than 30 million academic article titles from 1945 to 2000 showed that the uses of term gender were much rarer than the uses of sex, often as a grammatical category. By the end of this period, the use of gender outnumbered uses of sex in the social sciences and humanities and arts. It was in the 1970s that feminist scholars adopted the term gender as a way of distinguishing socially constructed aspects of male-female differences from biologically determined. So the word gender root was coined by Joan Case in 1955, and that's kind of where the distinction between sex and gender begins in the world. This definition is going to be very important in this video, so listen carefully. By the term gender role, we mean all those things that a person says or does to disclose himself or herself as having the status of boy or man, girl or woman, respectively. It includes but is not restricted to sexuality in the sense of eroticism. And it also involves general mannerisms, deportment and demeanor, play preferences, recreational interests, spontaneous topics of talk in unprompted conversations, and casual comment, dreams, fantasies, and so on. Now, the question comes up, who was Joan Case? And obviously, why did he coin the word gender role? So, Joan Case was a sexologist working in the USA. He established the Johns Hopkins Gender Identity Clinic in 1965. And that was where the first sex reassignment surgery for a trans woman took place in the US. Joan Case, from his early 20s, leaned into the field of sex and sex studies, and he was an active promoter of sexual revolution in the 1970s. So what happened in the 1970s in the West was that contraception was widely promoted, and because of the wide use of contraceptives, the idea of sex was changing from a procreational activity to something of recreation, which means that people started to view sex not as a thing that produces children, but as a thing of pleasure and of expression and having a good time and all, because of contraceptives. Otherwise, sex was always tied up with pregnancies. Now, not anymore. And this was also a time where religion and anything traditional was on the decline in the West because of wars and because of scientific revolutions and so on, because of the decline of religion and because of the widespread use and availability of contraceptives. Casual and deviant kind of sexual practices were on the rise. I think the term casual sex came about in the same time. And being a sexologist, Joan Case was really pushing and encouraging this casual nature of sex and of exploring your sexual desires and fantasies and trying out things that were deemed deviant or divergent by the society at large. Case also had a long history of being sexually inappropriate to his clients, to his underlings and his students and even colleagues in the university. And most of that was done in the pretext of sexual desensitization, because obviously people don't like to talk to you about their intimate details or about deviant sex, but obviously talking about it kind of desensitize you. That's a good logic. Quoting from the book As Nature Made Him, a book we will shortly come to. Here goes. In 1986, Money published Love Map, an exhaustive study of such practices as sadomasochism, coprophilia, amputation fetishes, auto strangulation, and various other behaviors that he called not perversions but paraphilias, in an effort to destigmatize and decriminalize them. The topic of pedophilia became a particular interest, and one that took Money obvious delight in publicly espousing. All of these words are obviously censored for keeping this video on this channel. A childhood sexual experience, such as being the partner of a relative or of an older person, need not necessarily affect the child adversely. He granted an interview to Paidiga, a Dutch journal of pedophilia, which carries ads for North American man-boy love association and other pro-pedophile groups. This is not going this is going very wrong. This video is going to be horrible. Now, coming to John Money's academic pursuits, he did his doctoral dissertation on hermaphroditism from a psychological angle. Until then, hermaphroditism, also known as intersexuality, was only explored from a biological standpoint. So hermaphroditism, if you don't know, is a condition where a person is born with ambiguous genitalia. We cannot determine if they are male or female right to their genetic composition. This was where he first introduced the idea that our social expression, or our cultural and social expression of who we are, what our sex was not quite as grounded or rooted in genetics or biology as we would think. So after that, over a course of 6 years, he studies 131 intersexuals, ranging from toddlers to adults. And he observed a striking fact that intersexes who had been diagnosed with identical ambiguities and chromosomal makeups but raised in opposite sex from one another, more than 95% of them reportedly fared equally well psychologically, whether they had been raised as boys or girls. The primary factor determining an intersexual child's gender identity was not biology, rather than the way the child was raised. They formed the conception of themselves as masculine or feminine solely through rearing. He just basically says that it doesn't matter what organs you have, as long as you listen to your parents and your society, you can either be a man or a woman. That means that the sex of a person can be determined surgically or through hormonal therapy. In the 1950s and 60s, most of the intersex people were turned into girls because that was the easier surgery to do. Observing all of this, Money also says that the surgery and the introduction into girlhood or sex or gender should happen before 2.5 years of age, because that's the prime time where their identity and their consciousness is developing. So that would be the best time to tell them if they are a boy or a girl. Now you understand why some people want to influence toddlers and kindergarten children into gender ideology. Another very important thing is that you should never create ambiguity about their identity if they are being changed. So with all this, John Money had effectively solved the issue of intersexuality in humans, because it was really a grappling question until then, where people did not know what to do with an intersex child. And his theories and his methods spread across the world in a matter of a few years. But in Money's mind, the question remains: if the intersex people can be assigned a gender or a sex externally, then can't we do the same with normal people as well? And Money obviously believed that that's possible. That is, a child or our individual sexuality was completely dependent on the environment or the external feedback, and that it has nothing to do with their biology, their genetics, or anything else. Just like intersex people, transsexuals were another section of the society that could really prove John Money's hypothesis. The hypothesis that society made man and woman. History has it that he bugged the Johns Hopkins Institute to start gender reassignment surgeries in their clinic. And the surgeons there tried to hold it off as much as they can, because obviously they did not want to castrate and mutilate adults. But in 1965, the first transsexual surgery happened in Johns Hopkins Gender Clinic. And in 1967, tragedy befell the Reimer family. As we already saw, the goal of eccentric, deeply egoistic, pompous and aggressive sexologist Joan Money was not to solve the intersexuality issue or the transsexual issue that the world faced, but to prove his hypothesis that sex or gender was determined culturally or socially, also known as the social constructivism of gender. And David Reimer became the experiment that he used to prove that hypothesis. The Reimer family sought the help of the self-proclaimed missionary of sex, Joan Money, after the child had a horrible accident. David Reimer at that time was called Bruce Reimer. He had a medical accident during circumcision which burned his penis to an extent that it could not be saved anymore. And there was this brilliant sexologist going, gender was interchangeable anyway, what's the big deal? And the solution was, of course, the same solution that the surgeons and sexologists John Money had for the intersex people: to raise David Reimer, a biological male, as a girl. Nothing wrong is going to happen with that. So Bruce became Brenda. It's a crime that he was called that, by the way. And Money told the parents, never let the child know his true history. Never let the child know that he was born a man. But apparently David Reimer always knew that he was not a girl. He used to rip off his girl clothes as a toddler even. He used to always be standing. He was so rough and harsh, and he was always breaking things. He could not behave anything like a girl was expected to behave, to the point that he was called a cave woman. He was thoroughly bullied, and he was even threatened to be knifed if he continued with his behaviors. Money obviously published the results of this experiment as a success story, and without ever revealing the identity of the family. And this case was called as Joan Case. The picture Money painted about this experiment was that it was a great success story, that he was successfully able to transform a biological male, a person who is supposed to be a man, into a girl. After undergoing hormonal therapy and looking like a girl, Money just proclaimed that he was a girl, and he felt like a girl, and he thought like a girl, and he acted like a girl. But later on, when David Reimer himself came out with his story, he says that he never felt normal in his skin. He never felt like a girl, and somewhere deep in his unconscious, he knew that he was a boy. He had severe gender dysphoria throughout his life, and he threatened to commit suicide at the age of 13. That's a story all in itself. So David Reimer had a twin, They were twins. One was raised as a boy, another was raised as a girl. And they both had to attend Mani's therapy sessions every week or every month. And in those therapy sessions, Brian, the twin, alleges Joan Mani abused them. And he did all those abuse in the name of healthy childhood sexual exploration. Whatever the hell that meant. Showing the children explicit sexual pictures was seemingly central to Mani's theories of gender reassignment. David Reimer later recalled as Brenda getting yelled at by Mani. He told me to take my clothes off and I just did not do it. I just stood there and he screamed no. I thought he was going to give me a whooping. So I took my clothes off and stood there shaking. Mani allegedly made Brenda assume a position on own force on his office sofa and made Brian come up behind her on his knees and place his against her buttocks, and elements of Mani's theory he referred to as sexual rehearsal play. In 1980, maybe because the father couldn't take any of it anymore, the father of David Reimer confided in him and told him that he was born a man. By age 21, Reimer had received testosterone therapy and surgeries to remove his breast and reconstruct a penis. He married Jane Fontaine, a single mother of 3, on September 22, 1990. The story goes on where the twins lives in deep trauma for years, where they have had relationship problems and problems holding on jobs. Reimer's brother, who suffered from depression and schizophrenia, died from an antidepressant drug overdose. In 2002, on May 2, 2004, Reimer's wife told him that he wanted a divorce. 2 days later, at age of 38, Reimer committed suicide by firearm. So, from the very beginning, the psychologist was terribly and horribly wrong. But he was dictated by his own perversion, arrogance. The times were also a major factor because feminism was at its peak at that time, and feminism wanted really badly to prove that sex roles or gender roles were just functions of society and has nothing to do with biology or evolution. They really wanted to say that everything that a man could do, a woman could do, and everything that a woman could do, man could do. So therefore, these kinds of theories had a great standing at that time. Despite having all of this support and environment, none of that ever made him right. We still have no idea if sex reassignment surgery is the answer to gender dysphoria, meaning how well it works and the nuances in this gender reassignment surgery. A lot of research and studies have to go into understanding this phenomenon better because there are a lot of complications involved in this. But doing gender reassignment surgeries or procedures on normal people has catastrophic results. That is what we are doing to our young people and our teenagers every day now. So before you sit there and repeat what the left liberals say, think once again. Is gender really fluid? And what is gender to begin with? So that is the whole story of Joan Mani and his entire ridiculous endeavor of proving something that is just absurd and taking lives of people in the process. So what do you think about his academic life? Please tell me in the comment section. How disgusted are you by this story? Don't forget to like this video and share with others who might want to hear how Joan Mani did what he did. So subscribe to this channel. Thank you. I've published my first book, a novel named Life in a Ziploc Bag. It's the story of 4 kids living in a city with their unique life experiences. They are connected by the chaos in their lives, which are fueled by drugs, abuse and isolation. I don't want to give it all away right here. You can check it out on Amazon or Flipkart. It's also available for direct buying. All these links are given in the description. If you are interested, please go and check it out and grab your copy right now. Thank you.